When is a multiverse not a multiverse? When are sideways worlds just memories? While once it was in vogue to say the Final Fantasy VII Remake employs different timelines, if you haven't heard, alternate realities are so last year. The remake project is far more sophisticated than that, so we're led to believe. To explain the use of many worlds, some fans are jumping on the memories in the Lifestream bandwagon. I guess it's no surprise, it's the deepest lore connection on offer. There were no split timelines in the original game, but there was a Lifestream, so I guess that's something. The Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy truly is a groundbreaking project. It's the first story to utilise multiple universes, yet have its fans so strenuously object to the moniker of multiverse. It's as if, for those fans, a world-hopping multi-timeline comic book style multiverse would be bad for Final Fantasy VII, while, on the other hand, a world-hopping multi-timeline Lifestream style multiverse would be perfect for Final Fantasy VII. But we know those fans would have happily ridden any horse to the finish line, should it have been the only one left in the race. Nevertheless, we're 2 parts deep into a trilogy and fans are busy decoding what they're seeing on screen. Even dedicated remake fan groups are rife with debate, as people routinely go back and forth on whether these other worlds are different timelines, realms within the Lifestream, or something else. Many of these fans speak with a kind of authority and certainty, despite having seen their past convictions whittled away by the passing of time. My position is fairly simple. I don't care what these other worlds are, nor do I care how you wish to categorize them. I only care about the effect they're having on the story. Don't you realize that when people say "God, I hate a multiverse in Final Fantasy VII" or "God, I hate alternate timelines," usually they're not making a concrete claim about what the actual thing is. Most of the time they don't care because, in their eyes, the damage has already been done to the story. Instead, they're expressing how much they hate the dilution of Final Fantasy VII's story by showing multiple worlds. Because if you are writing a story about life, and through that showing how fleeting life can be, revealing other worlds where dead characters stew and ruminate and endure in a sort of never-ending Lifestream soup kind of chips away at the message of how transient our time is. Call it what you want, multiple realities, multiple Lifestream echoes presented as worlds, multiple universes, a multiverse. In any writer's room on any planet, dragging multiple worlds into an existing, highly acclaimed story might seem like a risky move, especially when those worlds have the ability to muddy that story's famous stakes and storytelling. But not for Square Enix, and not for their loyal fanbase. In many of their eyes, it's utterly perplexing why we wouldn't want many worlds. Why have one version of a character when you can have many? Why let dead characters join the Lifestream when you can travel there with them, pull up a deck chair and crack open a couple of cold ones? Remember in the original story, once people were gone, they were gone. There was no communication with Aerith, there were no worlds within the Lifestream, there were no avenues to spend time with her or other dead heroic characters again. There was no comfort in finding reflections of people you missed. So if you were looking to expand on the theme of life and death from the original game, surely the sensible way to do that will be to responsibly recreate and serve the existing moments that spoke that thesis so clearly. Yet, a deeper form of storytelling, so we're told, comes from showing us many versions of the world and many versions of its characters, because when they all eventually disappear, we'll feel the greatest sense of loss. The equivalent of using a battering ram to hammer a nail into a wall. Oh, they're just memories, you might say, or dreams of the spirit world. They're largely irrelevant to what's going on in the main narrative, and they are worlds that are destined to fade. So, does it matter if those multiple worlds end up having much of a consequence at all? For example, if those other realities secure life or guarantee victory for the characters, or instead if they're simply alternate plots to broaden the scope of the narrative and show more sides to characters? Well, I'd argue that even if by the end of a story, showing an other world proves to be inconsequential insofar as characters are still dead in the main narrative, or those new worlds cease to exist thereafter, just the existence or momentary existence of those worlds cuts away at any tension in the storytelling. For example, if you're following a conveyor belt to the Forgotten Capital to watch Aerith catch a HD death, but along the way you're wondering what the other Aerith is up to right now, the story may have some issues. Unless of course those narratives are hardwired for such mechanics, for example a pure time travel story or a pure what if story. That feels like pretty basic storytelling, right? I mean, we're not asking for the moon and the stars here. You wouldn't want suddenly multiple worlds in a remake of Gladiator or a remake of Lord of the Rings. Even if you're not particularly interested in the craft of storytelling, I think the majority of people will enjoy a story with maximised stakes, and that often means a real sense of finality in every decision. Something you can't really get to when your story offers many sideways worlds with sideways outcomes. But let me play devil's advocate. In the eyes of some Final Fantasy VII fans, there are foundations within the original game to support multiple worlds. They fully believe there's provenance there to justify the direction Remake and Rebirth took. Of course, I'm talking about the famous scene where Cloud and Tifa tumble into the Lifestream, their minds connect, and together they navigate the landscape of Cloud's memories, piecing together his true past. The Lifestream acting as a storytelling mechanic to join Cloud and Tifa is a hell of a distance away from the Lifestream giving rise to multiple worlds and multiple versions of characters. But let's just assume these fans are correct, and there really are foundations to support these things. Should the existence of such foundations merit the building of a ramshackle house, with materials that would never pass a building inspection? Or if you're choosing to remake or continue a story, should you build out only that which serves the narrative to the fullest extent, without betraying or nerfing its theme, and stripping it of the stakes that made it so famous? Consider James Cameron's Titanic for a moment. Spoilers, but that movie ends with a vision of Rose and Jack reunited on the famous ocean liner. I've always viewed that scene as old Rose passing away and finally reuniting with the passengers and crew. Maybe a last gasp dream just as she passes into the light. Some view that scene as just a nighttime dream Rose has. Either way, we've got some sort of tenuous link to an other realm of sorts, right? Be it dream or afterlife, the story has shown us a world where dead characters have reunited. If someone remade that movie, are they now justified in running an alternate world story through the narrative? And if that remake cut to a different world where Jack and Rose are walking around an alternate Titanic bound for Lisbon instead of New York, then regardless of what that other world is, those scenes are surely going to make you feel differently about the main story. As the Titanic crosses the Atlantic Ocean to meet its fate in the main story, an other world creates a window of opportunity for Jack and Rose, or at least a version of them. Maybe you watch that remake knowing that as the light goes out in one world, it endures in another. And if the existence of that other world strips away even 1% of the tension that existed in the original movie, surely that's a fail. Even if the existence of that other world still leads to a place where the Titanic sinks and Jack still dies, the mere presence of that other world throughout the narrative has eaten away at the tension as you experience the story. Because you know that if the worst thing happens in the main narrative, there's always a pocket you can retreat to, a reality you can surrender to, even if it's a lie. Okay, perhaps you're thinking Titanic is an unfair example, because in your eyes there's way more justification for multiple worlds in Final Fantasy VII. Well, in Avatar, the world of Pandora has a consciousness through which all living things are connected. Spoilers incoming for both movies, but this network even holds memories of the dead. In a story where a world holds memories of the dead, it is telling that this mechanism only surfaces when the characters are to reflect on that which is lost. At least so far in the Avatar saga, the spirit or memory world does not offer an other place with a story of its own. There are no multiple worlds or multiple versions of characters. And there's a reason James Cameron has not ballooned that spirit world mechanic so that it attains larger prominence in his story. There's a reason he has only used it as a means to further support his thesis of a world connected. There's a reason he has not ran a B-plot through this other realm, but has merely used it as a place for the living to momentarily visit. Because, very simply, he understands stakes. And even though communicating with reflections or memories of dead characters is markedly different to how the original Final Fantasy VII handled loss, we're still leagues away from feeling like this other place is a functioning world and society that the story could easily slip into. Cameron knows that a multiverse / alternate worlds / worlds within the Lifestream angle would water down everything that's happening in his main narrative, stripping it of conflict and weight. The act of living in the main world would cease to hold importance. There would be little tangible difference between the main world and the other worlds, and it would make a relatively simple tale needlessly convoluted. Just because Final Fantasy X has a place where people can see their lost loved ones and unsent dead characters roam the world as part of the rules baked into that story, should we want a plot where we switch back and forth with that other world? Just because that story has a place of dreams, would we want to peel back the veil and immerse ourselves in that other realm? Or is the story best served by focusing on the here and now, the physical, the tangible, the reality, the place where stakes matter, where conflict is king? So, to put it bluntly, Remake and Rebirth may be someone's Nirvana experience, but it must be for some reason beyond the kind of storytelling I'm interested in. And it's why, for many fans, they're dropping off this project. Not just because they found it to be unfaithful to the original game, but because they found it to be deeply convoluted as its own story. I guess that's why, for me, it seems the endless theories, questions and arguments are the fuel that's keeping this remake project in the waning spotlight. Like a breached airship sinking into the mist, it's the fan chatter, shipper wars and social media numbers that momentarily keeps it afloat, just long enough before it sinks into the forgetful fog. If the entire fandom was in agreement and there was absolute clarity in remake storytelling, then there would be no theory crafting. There would just be reviews, analysis and latest news videos. Because in targeting a popular story, inflating it and shrouding it in mysteries, Square Enix have forgone retelling the story and instead have created an experience where everyone can chime in with their own interpretation, where everyone feels they are correct and can champion their own predictions and ride them out to the finish line in the hopes that they're the ones still standing at the end of the near 8-year race. I'm not too big on theories. I just want someone to sit me down, shut me up and tell me a good story. So whether that multiverse thing is split timelines or dreams or something else, it really doesn't matter, because I have to live it again if I ever replay the story. I have to enter a world where disappearing characters hang around after they should have been permanently erased from the game. I have to enter worlds that peel tension away from the main narrative. And really, it's the remake fans who are focusing on what that mechanism may be and how it could be lore linked, rather than considering why, in the interests of storytelling, such a thing should even exist in a story like Final Fantasy VII. Perhaps that's why you've then pulled close the deepest lore connection you can find, as if to say that the idea of something totally alien to that would be sacrilegious for Final Fantasy VII, as if to say any of the other theories you now discard but once entertained were just momentary blips in your devotion. Now you've found the truth, you've seen the light, you're one step closer to unravelling the mystery, while for everyone else, the only mystery ever worth pondering was what the hell Square Enix were thinking.